Alright, well, their suggestion location for putting fasteners on this is pretty stupid. Unless you use their little sheet metal screws, which I said I will not use because it'll work great for a while. But by the time you get wind blowing on this and the vibrating of a car and everything else, those screws will start wallowing out the hole and making it bigger. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's fiberglass, plastic, and even metal. You know, some people seem to think when you put on body kits, you just use sheet metal screws. Well, problem is sheet metal screws pulls on the metal, and in time it'll just make the hole bigger and bigger. And it doesn't fasten it tight for a long period of time. It will at the time, but as you drive on and vibrations, everything, it will come loose. It's why a lot of your bolts on your cars, like on your motors and everything else, have Loctite and everything on it, because the vibration of the car, it will come loose. But where they got these holes located, if you were to try to use bolts, more than likely one of them, if you went straight down, it's going to come out right in this area, and you don't want that. And the other one straight down will be right here, and that's a big problem, because if you see this little lip right here, the reason that's there is because your wing sits over that. As you can see, the dirt from where it's at sits right here. And the last thing you want is some bolt or something protruding from that wing being close to the glass, and vibration, or if somebody comes by and maybe hits the wing, you know, this glass will crack or shatter in time. So their location is kind of a joke. So if you're going to do a wing like this, suggestion is you're going to have to make your own bolt holes. You can't really bolt it to the bottom of this, because if you see how this is raised up, and that's raised up, and then you see this is sunken in and sunken in. It's basically made so it'd be tight here, and then up here it's going to be tight in this section too. So if you try to put a bolt in there, more than likely it's going to it's going to make it stick up. So, and you don't want that. So when I had this off, this little cover here was covering up this hole. Maybe some kind of accessory or something they have on it. But there wasn't a hole over here until I made one with a hole saw. So I made one here with a hole saw. Then I saw these little indentions here and here. Alright, I got the holes drilled out where those little indentions were. Now before I go through the top of this wing and into the bottom of this wing, you want to make sure your wing is set up where you want. I had tape on it. It was moving a little bit. Now I could put more tape on it, but went ahead and put some clamps to clamp it down into place and get it to where I want it to hold. Now, to get a true straight hole all the way through, what I'd suggest is you take a hole saw, you get in the hole nice and level where you want it and straight, and then start drilling, but don't drill to the point where your hole saw cuts a hole in the top of this wing, but where the guide hole will drill through this and the bottom wing. Alright, got the holes through. Now here's the thing. This one here, you want the hole saw probably to be straight up and down of what the hole is, so it'll be an angle. When you do these, you don't want to go straight like that, because they'll put it at an angle. So you want to turn it straight 90-degree angle straight up and down here to get the hole, and that went all the way through. Okay, on the bottom of the wing you're trying to install, you got enough of a marking, I can drill that hole out. That one went all the way through. This is the one where I made a mistake. That's the first hole. This is the second hole. It almost went through. This one I went all the way through. That one all the way through. And I just marked enough that I can drill it out and put it all the way through. See, what the threaded rivet nut does is, see it in that diagram, before you crimp it down, and it slides in there, and then when you crimp it down, it spreads out and pinches itself in between the material, pretty much locking in. It's a little sleeve thing like this that has threads inside of it. As you can see, what you get is a rivet style type of gun. I'll have this threaded piece on there, and you put that shaft or that threaded piece on there all the way up to it tight. Get your hole made about the size of it. I made this a little smaller, so I'm going to have to kind of force it in there. There we go. Make sure you get it all the way down. And like a pop rivet, clamp it up tight. And you come up here and you can thread it down some more if you want. Tighten it down to where it meets it. Give it another squeeze till you think you're satisfied with it. Not gonna let me do any more, so. Alright, I've decided I'm just gonna go ahead, since I've got everything done, to mount this to my original wing and just keep it on there, and not have to worry about taking it on and off and having something go wrong. You know, once it's on there, I can paint it on and everything else. It's not going to really matter too much. So as you see, I've got the threaded inserts installed. I went ahead and I've got the double-sided tape put on it. Now, the thing to do is when you do it, at least do some of it where it's a little long, cut it long, then peel this up enough to a certain point, and there it's still sticking to the double-sided, and trim it off and leave this hanging out. Because toughest thing is when you're trying to line this up, if you take that off and you start trying to line up bolts, you know, it comes a pain and it gets stuck, and it's stuck where you don't want it, and then you pull it up and then it starts pulling loose and pulling away, and you got to redo it and everything else. So what you do is you get it a little long, then you trim, you peel this up to a certain point, and then you trim it off, and then you let it hang outside, and let it hang outside to an angle where you can pull this way. Because if you try to pull it in a different direction, you know, that won't come out. But what I'll do is when I put that on, I'll start bolting. Before I cinch it down, I'll make sure I have all the bolts in, so it basically will mean it's lined up. And then I'll peel these back, and then I'll torque down the bolts, and then this should stick to the wing.